So can you be in mute to start
Yeah,
with?
I can. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Okay. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. So today we will discuss something about DevOps. Like before going into the DevOps, so DevOps tools, DevOps process, and all those things. Before going into DevOps tools, so I will introduce what is DevOps first of all. Okay, so what is DevOps means? So Krishna, like I have a doubt. Like, can you introduce yourself? Like to have
Hi.
some bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm Sai Krishna. I recently got graduated from the New England College.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm looking for the job opportunities on the DevOps, and I consulted this consultancy.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
I also have some knowledge, like as I'm taking my own training by looking videos on the YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. So before going here, so I am Durga. I'm having 6+ years of experience. Only in DevOps, and I've been working with multiple companies. Right now, I'm working with MNC one MNC company, which is product-based company. So I'm from Hyderabad, and then so I've been teaching around like from past 3 years, where like like I've done my teaching for hundreds of students, where they have got into multiple positions right now. So where when they have joined with me, like they don't have anything. Like they were you know college graduates, or else like who is having non-IT experience. So all those folks have come into my training, and they are working in different companies right now. Okay. So
Hi,
yeah.
Durga. I have a question.
Mhm.
Are there any other people, or am I only the only person who is taking this class?
Yeah, you are only person right now. So in a week, like they, as per SSIT, like they are going to, like people are going to add, students are going to add
Yeah,
within a
yeah.
week.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I got it.
yeah. So that is the thing. And then again, like, so coming to the topic, so what is DevOps? So DevOps is not a single department. It is combination of dev plus operations. So what is dev again? What is operations? So dev means development. So who is development? Who writes the code? Who writes the code for the for the requirement, right? So what is ops? So let's say this development team has written a code. So they wanted to deploy it somewhere, right? So they wanted to use some servers to deploy the code. That might be different servers, or else like the different storages. So all those things, so they need operations. So here operations team comes into the picture. Who is operations again here? So operations could be networking team, storage team, you know, like all other thing, like who supports the development team. Okay, so what happens? Why DevOps has come into the picture? So why DevOps is famous right now? Like why it is booming everywhere? So DevOps is booming. The problem here is whenever there is an issue with the development. So let's say I have given, like, client has given one requirement. So one requirement. Okay. According to the requirement, developers have written the code. So developer has done their job. So it is like the code, whatever they have written as per the requirement, that is working fine in their local environment. Let's say local environment means in their local systems. Let's say if they wanted to deploy it somewhere, like if I wanted to deploy, obviously if they wanted to show to the client, so they need to deploy into different environments. So that we'll discuss later. So what is the environments and how it is. But for now, so if they wanted to deploy it somewhere in the servers, so what they need to do is they need to use servers. That could be Jenkins. We don't need to worry about what is Jenkins and all those things. That could be Jenkins. That could be Kubernetes. Everything. Let's say. So what is the problem here is, so let's say this developer, the code is working fine in their local environment, but it is not working as expected in these servers. Let's say it is Kubernetes servers. So here the problem will start. So what is the issue here? Like let's say, so dev team will dev team will have a conflict with the operations team. So what is the conflict here? So conflict here is, so developer will say that I have written a code and it is working fine in my local environment, but it is not working as expected in this Kubernetes services, which is maintained by operations team. These things will be maintained by operations team. Let's say, okay. So now what happens? So dev team will start some small blame game, like okay, like my code is working in my dev in my local, but it is not working as expected in the servers. So operations team again, they'll come back and they'll say no, it is not with our servers, or else it is not with our storage things, uh, as uh, as dev team says. So it is the issue with the code level. Okay. So in this case, what happens? The blame game will start. So this will be a never ending process. Like every release, they'll have to write a code as per their requirement. So every release they'll be having these issues. So dev team will say something, operations team will say something, which is not relating anyway. So there is no one to bridge this gap basically. Okay. So there the DevOps has come into the picture. So what DevOps will do? So whatever the code they have written. So this is DevOps. DevOps is the bridge between dev and ops team. So what is the bridge here? Let's say they have written a code as written by developer. Okay. So if the code is not working as expected, so they'll contact DevOps team that okay, we are having so and so issue at so and so place. Like let's say we are having issue in Jenkins, or else we are having issue with the cloud. Let's say that could be anything like AWS or Azure or GCP. So whatever. So all those things will have to taken care by DevOps basically. Okay. So before going here, what will be the DevOps responsibilities? So when you get the job, right? So you will be asking this question first initially, that okay, what are your responsibilities, right? So DevOps responsibilities. So first thing is, so there is a GitHub. So there is a GitHub. So we will have to work as a GitHub administrator, and then we'll have to work as a Linux administrator. Not for every time, but sometimes. Sometimes what happens, right? If you are going, if you get the job in startup companies, so you'll have to take care of all these things. Linux administrator, as a like you'll have DevOps engineer has to work as a Linux administrator as well as GitHub administrator too. But most of the companies, like most of the MNC companies, else most of the service-based companies also will not uh, will not ask us to ask DevOps engineers to work as a Linux administrator, but limited companies. So where my ex-colleague who is there right now is working as Linux administrator as well as DevOps. Like he'll be taking care of DevOps activities as well as Linux administrator activities also. But this case is rare thing. Okay, and then we will be we'll have to take care by CI/CD activities. What is CI/CD? So all these things we'll discuss once we get this topic. But so what is CI/CD right now? So continuous integration and continuous deployment or delivery. So here, whenever, like we will be using one tool called Jenkins here, right? So if you get any issue, let's say developer gets any issue here, so they'll they'll straight away come to you and they'll ask, okay, so we are getting so and so issue. So can you resolve the issue? So it is not deploying, it is not building the image, or it is not deploying this my image into the servers and all those things. Okay, so we will have to work as a CI/CD engineer. So before DevOps, so we had a role called CI/CD engineer. So where he'll be taking care of all the Jenkins activities. Okay. So the next thing will be cloud engineer. So we can work as cloud engineer too. So what is cloud engineer? So let's say right now we will be teaching about AWS. Okay. So if you have added AWS in your resume, right? So so they'll ask you to work on different services on AWS. So AWS will have multiple services, not only AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, whatever it is. So if you say AWS, please remember. So if you say AWS, so uh, there is a chance of working to working with Azure also, working with Google Cloud also. So it doesn't matter. So the problem here is, so once you are familiar with one cloud, so the same things will the same thing will be the service will be the same, the functionality will be the same, but the name would be different. So let's say if you are working as a EC2, like there is something called Elastic Compute Cloud. This is virtual machine basically. So if you wanted to launch one virtual machine, so we will call it as in AWS we'll call it as EC2. The same virtual machine will be called it as VM in Azure, right? So the same thing will be called as VM in Google Cloud. The same VM can be called as Droplet in another cloud. The name, like right now, it is coming. So Droplet means VM. EC2 means VM only. So VM means again VM only. Okay. Krishna, any doubt here?
No, Durga, you can continue.
Yeah. So please be like so 8 to 9. So please be available. So you don't miss
Uh,
anything. So you can ask me.
yeah, sure.
Okay. From tomorrow, please make sure
From
that like
tomorrow. Yeah,
yeah.
I got misunderstood with the timings.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the again we will be working as 𝐾𝐞 engineers. What is 𝐾𝐞 here? So 𝐾𝐞 is something called Kubernetes. Kubernetes. So what is Kubernetes? So what it is? So what is the structure of it? And all those things we'll discuss later. But for now, we'll have to work as 𝐾𝐞 engineer, like 𝐾𝐞 Kubernetes administrator also. Not Kubernetes administrator completely, but Kubernetes administrator. Uh, this role will go to them. Like let's say if they are having 10 plus years of experience. So Kubernetes is not a small thing. So if they get any, like if developers gets any doubt here in Kubernetes things, so we will be responsible to create, resolve those their issues, and then we will be calling as infrastructure engineers. Somehow, what is infrastructure again? So infrastructure is something. So if they like, let's say if I wanted to deploy one application in one server in one application, if I wanted to deploy my code into one service, so I need one service from Azure or from AWS, whatever it is, right? So to do that, so someone has to create infra for the application, right? So who will be taking care of these things? We'll be taking care by DevOps engineers. But here what we will be using? We will be using something called Terraform. Okay, so infrastructure engineer. So we will be these are these responsibilities which like DevOps will be taking care by. DevOps engineer will be taking care by basically. So apart from this, there will be multiple things, multiple ad hoc tasks. So what would be that? So if you wanted to migrate anything, so migrate from, let's say right now there is a single server in Azure. So it doesn't matter, but the thing is like whenever whenever there is a requirement, right? So it will come to us only. It will come to DevOps engineers. So where they'll have to take care of everything like from scratch basically. Single migrate from single server to flexible server. There is something called a flexible server in Azure. So who will have to do? So developer will not know anything. What is this flexible server? What is single server? Okay, so it is provided by MySQL single server, which is there in Azure. Okay, so these type of tasks will be taken care by DevOps engineers. And ad hoc task means there are many multiple tasks would be there. So let's say I can say, okay, um, you need to manage GTMs, LTMs, all those things will be discussed. So just to make sure that, okay, we'll be working like DevOps in responsibilities are like this. So we'll be like this. So it is not okay. Okay, I have done I learned all the DevOps tools. I'll not work as a Linux engineer, Linux administrator. So it doesn't matter. Like it is not the case. So we need to work as per requirement basically. Okay, so before going into the tools, DevOps tools, I'll explain how it goes. So how our training goes. So let me open. Mm, Okay. So first we'll start with Linux. Okay. First we'll start with Linux, and then we'll start Git, and then we'll go with the Maven. So before this, so what I will do, so I'll put it in this way. So to become DevOps engineer, so we need to have Linux basics. That is for sure. Since if you don't know Linux, so you'll have to learn Linux basic commands. So that will be like around, it will take around 3 days to complete the Linux commands. So you don't need to worry about all these things. But so if you are attending the classes regularly, if you are practicing the classes, whatever we have discussed in the class, so if you are practicing that would be like enough for you to get the job. That is for sure. Okay, so there is something called, so here, so we can call it as source code management tools. So what is source code management tools? So remember, let me put here. So after Linux, so we will be dealing with source code management tools. So what is source code management tools? So source code management tools there are multiple tools basically. So the existing right now, everyone is using GitHub, and then there is something called Bitbucket, and then there is something called SVN, and then there is something called Azure repos. So do we need to learn all the tools? No. So we don't need to learn all the tools. So if you are learning GitHub here, so the same commands will be executed in Bitbucket. The same commands will be executed in SVN. The same commands will be executed in Azure repos. So the ultimate goal, what is the goal here? So let's say, so if you are learning one tool here, so that would be enough you to work with other tools. If you get let's say we will be discussing about GitHub here. So once you get the job, so you need to work on Bitbucket. So you don't need to worry about it. So why we don't need to worry? And the problem here is the functionality will be the same. So why we use GitHub basically? So we will be using GitHub to store our source code. To store our source code, and that's it. The functionality will be the same. The UI will be different. That's it. So how GitHub looks like and how Bitbucket looks like, that is the only matter. So remaining will be the same. Everything will be the same. Okay. And then we will discuss something called build tools. So what is build tools here? What are build tools? There is a tool called Maven. There is a tool called Gradle. Okay. So there is a tool called Maven, Gradle, and Ant, Nant, like this, right? So what are the build tools here? So build tools are something like, there is something called Maven. So we'll be discussing about Maven here. So why we'll be discussing Maven? Since it is open source, first thing. The second thing is, so Maven is, so a maximum companies are using like around 60 to 70% industries, like organizations, are using Maven as their build tools. So what it does basically, so it is going to create one package. So what is package? So how we are going to use, and all those things will be discussed in the coming classes. So what you people need to do is, so you need to practice on daily basis. That's it. So the class will be for 1 hour. So if you practice for 2 hours, like if you can spend 2 hours more every day apart from this class, so that would be enough for you to get the job. That is for sure. And then there is something called application server tools. So what is application server tools? Application server tools could be Tomcat, JBoss. So there is something called there are multiple tools basically. So which uh, many of the companies will be using. Okay, so we will be discussing about Tomcat here. So what it does? So it is going to give you one server to deploy your package. Okay, and then we will be discussing something called artifact repositories. Artifact repositories tools. So what it is? So there is a tool called Nexus. There is a tool called JFrog. There is a tool called in Azure. We have something called Azure Container Registry. So like this. So what it does basically? So whatever we have created the package, whatever we have created the package or image, so that will be stored here in this artifact repository tools. Okay, so there is something called, after this there is something called Docker tools, CACD. So here for Docker we don't have anything, only Docker we need to work. So we will discuss about what is Docker and all those things. And in industry also there is no other tool than Docker. So maximum 90% of the companies are using Docker only uh, as their image tools. So there is something called CACD. We will be discussing about Jenkins here, but we have many tools here. So we will be having something called Circle CAE, Travis CAE, Azure DevOps. So, and then GitHub Actions. So there are multiple things. So if you come to Nexus, there is something called Nexus CACD. So there are multiple tools here. So do we need to learn all these things? No. If you learn Jenkins, so how like we are teaching, how I am teaching here is like whatever we are using right now. So those tools only will be discussed here. Okay. And then we will be using something called container orchestration tools. So you don't need to worry about all these things, but the thing is like whatever we are going to cover, that I'm explaining, that's it here. So we'll be discussing something called Kubernetes. Okay, so the flow would be like this. So DevOps flow chat. The flow would be like this, right? So when there is a code which is written in GitHub, when there is a code in GitHub, so we wanted to build by using Maven or Gradle, whatever we have discussed right now. And then testing will be taken care by JUnit and Selenium test cases. These things will be taken care by developers. And if they wanted to, and if they wanted to, if they wanted to take care of these things by DevOps engineers, so that is not an issue. Like we will have some scripts and all, so we will just write it is right. We will just execute those scripts. That's it. Okay, after then, so once the code is ready and once the build is done, and then we'll go for release. So by using Jenkins. So there are multiple tools, as I told, Jenkins, Bamboo, Circle CI, Travis CI, Azure DevOps, and all those things. So these things will be taken care by Jenkins here. So right now we will be discussing about Jenkins. So what it is going to do? So it whatever the package it is there, that will be converted as a image here. So CI/CD, so continuous integration and continuous deployment to the delivery tool. And then once the release is done, we'll be deploying into different servers, like it would be Kubernetes, it would be Ansible, whatever it is. And then once it is done, so we'll be going into the operate. We'll have to uh, see like the things, how the things are going on. So what we will be doing here? So once the deployment is done, we'll be monitoring all the applications by using different tools, by like Nagios, Splunk, Grafana, Jobix. So there are multiple tools here in monitoring also. So here, if you see, so there are multiple tools involved here, but so if you see here, so there are bunch of tools. So if you see this peak, if you see this peak, like we will get, will I know. So that this is difficult to understand also. So if you see here build, so there are multiple tools to build. If you see like plan, continuous feedback, continuous integration, continuous deployment, so we'll be having multiple tools here. So we don't need to worry about all these tools. So we will have set of tools where the functionality will be the same. If you practice if you like if you practice well in this whatever we are going to discuss in this training, right? So after this, any doubts here still now? So we'll be discussing all these things.
No, Dukka.
Yeah. So the prereq for DevOps. So if you see the YouTube videos, right? So YouTube videos will be like there are multiple suggestions. The problem here is we had issue with the content basically in initial days. Right now we had issue with this content only. So we were having so hardly we used to get the content to content or material to learn all the tools basically in initial days. So right now the content is more like we don't know what to choose, where to choose, like which one we need to go. So we need to use we need to do we need to go with this channel, or else there are multiple videos, multiple streams, like Udemy, like YouTube. So there are multiple blogs also for DevOps, right? So many of them, if you have seen
Dukka,
yeah.
can you share me those links so I can follow it up?
No. I'm just saying like the problem here is like there are multiple things like which we don't need to you know which we cannot see like every video, like that video will be like 7 hours, 8 hours, right? So after watching it for 8 hours, so again like you will be getting some suggestion like from YouTube, like okay, you can watch this video, so where you'll have 1 million views, 2 million views, like this. The problem here is develop like in many videos they'll be saying, so you need to have programming language, the one language like programming language experience. So that could be Java, that could be you know Python, whatever it is. Minimum you should have programming language experience, like that's how they used to say, like in many videos. If you say DevOps roadmaps, if you see like DevOps roadmap in the blog, like, so if you see so there are multiple blogs in the Google, so where so if you say like DevOps roadmap, so you will be navigated in this way. So you'll have to know about programming language. You should know the programming language and all those things. But the problem here is we don't need to learn anything. So we don't need to have programming language experience here. Since we don't write any code, why we don't need to worry, like we don't need to learn programming. Like if you are, if programming, like if you know any language, that would be fine. But if you don't know anything about coding related things, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, I need to learn coding. I need to start Java. I need to start Python. You don't need to worry about it. So what is the difference between like who knows the language and who don't know, like who doesn't know the language? The whatever the developer writes the code, right? So you will be understanding the code. Like if you know the code, that's it. So if you don't know about any of these languages, you don't need to worry about it. So there is no prerequisite that okay, you need DevOps engineers should learn Java, or Python, or C, C++. Okay. The ultimately what I'm saying here is, so we don't need, as a DevOps engineer, to become DevOps engineer. So we don't need any programming language experience, right? So we don't need to worry about any of the languages since we don't write the code. So why we don't need to why we don't care? We don't write the code. So whatever the requirement is there, so as per their requirement, developers will work on it, and we are going to support them in terms of DevOps. Okay, that is one thing. And then second prerequisite is for DevOps. So let's say, so whatever like what we are going to provide. So let's say from my end, let's say we are discussing about Linux today. Okay, let's say we are discussing Linux or Git, whatever the topic. So I'm going to provide the interview questions. That is most frequent interview questions. PDF will be shared once we complete the topic, not before completion of the topic. Once we complete the topic, then we will share these interview questions. So what you need to do is you need to practice this. 1 second. Okay. So once you practice this class, so you need to start working on interview questions. Okay, and then the third prerequisite for to learn DevOps is so there are multiple tools. So whatever, let's say tomorrow I'll start with Linux. So to start with, so I'll inform a day before that whatever we wanted to install the tools to learn, to start with the topics. Okay, so interview questions will be prepared. Interview questions will be shared at the end of the topic. So make sure you need to practice at least minimum. You need to practice minimum 2 to 3 hours. You need to practice once we complete the session. That is if you have this time, so then you can you can work on it. So if you can spend only 1 hour to join the class or 1 hour to practice, that is difficult. Like, since it is vast subject, we need to learn multiple tools here, right? So that is the reason. So you'll have to spend minimum 2 to 3 hours per day once we complete, apart from this 1 hour class. And then, so we have discussed about the topics covered here. So these topics will be covered. So there are multiple topics too. Like, here we will be discussing the flow would be Linux, and then we'll see Git, and then we'll see about Maven, and then we'll see about Tomcat, and then we'll see about SonarQube, and then we'll discuss about something called Nexus or JFrog, whatever, and then we'll discuss about Docker, and then here we'll discuss about something called Ansible, and then we'll discuss about Kubernetes, and then we'll discuss about AWS, and then we'll discuss about Terraform. So these topics will be covered. Okay. So apart from this, so you'll have 3 applications. So where I have designed these applications, like there are 3 types of applications basically, as per organizations, as per industries. So standalone application, web application, that will be discussed later. So 3 applications will be available in my GitHub repository. So you can practice whenever you want, and you can fork it and you can practice it. Okay. Any doubts here, Krishna?
No, no. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen your question, right? So about Linux, right? So
Yeah.
once, so we'll discuss like once we start Linux, Krishna. So the
Okay.
problem, the problem here is we'll have to divide these commands into the into multiple parts. Like, let's say if I am teaching about file structure, like directory structure or file structure, so we'll have different parts basically. So where user commands, group commands, system commands, and all those things. So based on that, we can remember. And one more, like, we don't need to worry about all the commands at a time. So whenever there is a need, so then we will be in the picture. That's it. So you don't need to completely, remember all the commands. So I'll teach you
Okay.
in a way that, okay, like we have a PDF where we will be discussing each part by part basically. So these commands. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the opportunities, coming to the opportunities. So there are multiple opportunities in, for DevOps basically. So initially, so DevOps engineer, if you wanted to become DevOps engineer, you should have the programming language experience. That is when, like, before cloud into the picture. So before 6 to 7 years of like before 6 to 7 years. So to become DevOps engineer, you should have programming language experience. You should know programming language. That is for sure. You should know how to write the code. You should know how to, how to deploy the code and all those things. But so right now, since the cloud has come into the picture, so we don't need any programming language, as I said earlier. So because of that, so now DevOps stream has come, DevOps team is different right now for from other departments. So there is a dev team, there is QA team, there is you know DB team, there is networking team, in such a way that there is a DevOps team right now. Okay, so the opportunities are more. The thing is, you need to practice minimum 2 to 3 hours. That is for sure. So I think this recorded video will be available, for you to watch multiple times. And once you can write, you can write notebook also for your use cases. So that's all I can say. So tomorrow we'll discuss about Linux. So to start with Linux, so you should have AWS account, and you should have installed this 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐿. Okay, so to create AWS account, right? So that this is free basically for
I already have that one.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I'm practicing right now.
Okay, right. So have you installed 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐿 or PuTTY?
No. Yeah, I have PuTTY.
PuTTY. Okay, so try installing 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬.
Okay.
So this would be the tool. So 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬. So you'll have like PuTTY, how the PuTTY works in the same way, but the problem is like 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬 is advanced version than PuTTY.
Okay.
Okay, install this 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬. So we'll be covering all the topics by using 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐬.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, yeah. So we'll meet at the same time tomorrow. Please be available.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Sorry
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Krishna. Thank you, team.